Welcome to Sports Talk. We are bringing in Ron Goodman to go over the career of Les Goodman. Les is a 1968 graduate of Port Jefferson High School. He earned all county honors as a two-way dominant football player. Les excelled at Yankton College, where he became one of the most prolific running backs in the program history. He was inducted into the Yankton College Hall of Fame after his four-year collegiate career there. In October 1970, he rushed for 241 yards in a single game at Yankton. Just outstanding, outstanding player. Goodman was selected in the third round of the 1972 NFL Draft by the Atlanta Falcons. He played 2 seasons with the Green Bay Packers. So let's see if we can get Ron in here. Gotcha. How you doing?
How you doing? I'm doing great. Out
I'm,
here on the West Coast, gonna hang out with my kids today. We always do March Madness together.
oh, awesome, awesome.
All day long we watch basketball.
Did you do the brackets?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, who?
I thought Duke might have a good chance, and I think Arizona might if they play up to their capability, they have a good chance.
All right,
So,
fair enough, fair enough. I mean,
how
Duke is
about yourself?
always, Duke. I'm a Duke guy. You know, I
Okay.
but Long Island right now. I mean, not that they're going anywhere, but we got Hofstra in there. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we got some local talent in there. I think LIU got in there too, right?
Yeah, LIU got in
I mean,
there.
come
Yeah.
on now. That's
Yeah.
that's my alumni. I'm like LIU basketball getting into D1. Let's go.
Oh, okay, okay. So
Yeah,
now are you LIU or are you CW Post?
I'm CW. CW
Okay,
Post.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
can't be young enough to be LIU. Um, in fact, my son went there for 1 year. He went there and then he transferred to Lehigh. But
Okay.
he went to LIU the first year they went Division 1 in football.
Okay.
He went there and actually had a great. He was a freshman All-American. It was great, but it was during COVID. So his freshman year wasn't COVID. Then the spring it was COVID, and then his sophomore year they were on lockdown 24/7. He was
Sure.
miserable. So he
Sure.
ended up transferring to Lehigh, and he had a good career there. So
Okay. Now,
yeah,
were you at Post with Mike Jackson from Port Jeff?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
because him,
yeah,
him
yeah,
and
yeah.
Ben are on the same team.
Yeah, okay. I
So
was gonna say, so Mike, trying to think, who else was there? Miles, uh, was it Miles Gillies?
that
We,
that
we,
name sound that name
yeah,
sound familiar.
we were all Division 2 back then.
Hmm.
I was wrestling and playing football, but it was so small. We were around the basketball guys all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the aches still hurt.
Yeah, I know that. That's for sure. All right, so let's get into this. First of all, on behalf of Les and the family, welcome to the Suffolk County Sports Hall of Fame. I mean,
Amen.
it's an honor well overdue for him. Um,
Sure.
so take me through back in the Port Jeff days, like where it all started, where his sports career started, what he played besides football, and just how we got to the NFL, and then we're getting to the Hall of Fame.
Sure, sure. No, I love to do it because I had a bird's eye view. I'm 3 years younger than Les, and so sports was a way of life for us growing up. You go back further, my mom and her family were athletes.
Okay.
My mother and her sister were both athlete of the year their senior year in high school at,
Really?
at Port Jeff.
Wow.
And
Oh, you
and
guys are
so
old school Earl L. Vandermeulen.
yeah, so we're all there. So those two and my brother and myself are all on the same trophy as athlete of the year. So it
Oh,
starts back with them. But Les's early
outstanding.
career, we played, Long Island, we had baseball kind of in the summer,
Sure.
little league baseball. So he played baseball to start with, was pretty good. He was a guy that was going to be the best at whatever he did. I
Right.
mean, that started early in his life. And so we played baseball together. And then junior high really became when he got into sports. That's when we could first play school sports.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so he wasn't allowed to play football in junior high. My dad didn't go for it at that point.
Really?
And so Les was a track star in junior high. He held every record at the junior high. no matter what it was. We were back in the days
Sure.
of the United States physical fitness tests.
Yes, yes.
And he
President's
held
Physical
he
Fitness.
held every record. You go to the board and it just said L Goodman, L Goodman, L Goodman, no matter if it was push-ups, sit-ups,
Wow.
parallel bar dips, 50-yard dash, you name it. He had won it. And so he had that work ethic early on. And the other part that really stands out too as an early man, he was a drummer. He wanted to become a drummer.
Wow.
And he practiced so hard all the time. He was actually one of the best drummers I've ever seen. And so eventually he had a band too, and we'll get to that. They had a band called the Good and Plenty, and and so they were one of the best bands on Long Island. I mean, they could play anything. I mean, you
Wow.
you would think you were hearing the originals play it. It
So
was a
he
little
was multi-talented, really.
multi-talented.
Wow.
In junior high, they wrote an article about what can't he do. I mean, because
Wow.
he held every record and he was just on his way. So track and field was kind of his first foray into national prominence. And we travel as a family. We might go to Connecticut in the summer or whatever, wherever the meets were. We would go and watch him run. And
Wow.
and
For
he was
track and field. Wait, was
the
he a
track and field.
sprinter? Long distance sprinter?
Sprinter and the
Sprinter.
hurdles.
Okay.
And eventually, as he got to high school, he was second in the state in the 120 high hurdles. Barely just missed out to Pete Medina for state champion. And
Okay.
in fact, that state championship was at Earl of Vandermeulen,
Sure.
1968, in his senior year, 1968.
And a few years in, what was it, about 2004, I was the assistant principal and athletic director at
Mhm.
Earl L. And
Oh, okay.
and to this day, Port Jeff holds the state qualifiers
Hmm.
for spring track. And
Sure.
so it was one of my favorite events. You got to be the host of
Yeah.
all the guys in Suffolk County, the best of the best going for the state tournament. So it was
Oh,
really
you
cool.
can you can imagine me at that time too, seeing that. I got to meet Al Otter because
Yeah.
Coach Benjamin was very big, when they brought that championship there. So you got to see him, the Olympic distance guy, and
Yeah.
so
One of
it
the
was really,
best ever.
yeah, one of the best ever. So it was really a big deal. So Les was doing that, but he started playing football as a sophomore in high school
Okay.
and was a pretty good running back. I mean, he worked so hard. I mean, he was a guy that could lift weights. He was a guy that ran the 5 miles every day. And as a younger brother, there's another one. My brother Alan and I are the same year.
Okay.
We'd kind of look in his shadow and we'd work out, but he'd go that extra mile and he'd go that extra mile
So
and,
he was
and
so driven.
he was so driven. He was so
And
driven.
yeah, a guy like that, he's driven, but he has the talent.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, he's a drummer, so he's
Yeah.
rhythmic, and then he
Oh,
was fast.
yeah, he was
So
fast. I mean, I mean, he just worked at it too. I mean, he
yeah,
honed his skills. Eventually, I didn't know it, but he got to play with Bruce Springsteen at one point
really.
as a drummer. Yeah, so he was
Oh,
that talented. He really could play. I mean, he would practice, and we just sit and watch him go back and forth from drum to drum to drum, and just I mean, unbelievable. So it was really kind of a unique perspective to be as his
sure.
brother. And so as a sophomore, he's playing football and he's starting to make a little headway. And you remember back then, Port Jeff was a pretty big school back in
Yeah,
the 60s. So we were up in League One, League Two, somewhere
sure.
around that. And you're playing patch hog and you're playing the big
Yeah,
schools. And so he was doing well. And so he did well, had a good high school career. His football teams probably were right around 500. They
right,
they
right.
really didn't go anywhere. But track again was what drove him in high school. So he was a
Okay.
football player, but track was really his thing. And then eventually we have the state meet, and he does second in the 120 high hurdles, and then he goes on from there to Yankton College,
And was
and
he was he going to Yankton for track or for football or for both?
for both.
For
For
both.
both. Yeah, but track was a big part of that because he participated in the Drake relays as he was,
Gotcha.
in the Midwest and stuff. So he
Sure.
he really did that. And then football again, he just kept working and working harder. And at that time, you remember the name Lyle Alzado.
Of course, of
So
course.
Lyle was at Yankton at the same time. And so, they were a little school that was making some headway, out there in the nation. And
It sounds like Les wasn't as crazy as Lyle.
no, not not quite, not quite. But he was driven.
Yeah,
He could almost stay in the room with Lyle. There's so many
yeah,
stories about those, the weight room at Yankton College and Lyle just destroying it and going crazy.
sure.
But they had a few pros come out of there at that time. Another guy by the name of Wandell Wilson, who
Okay.
played for the Falcons, was a defensive back. Him and Les were pretty good buddies, and I got to know him through Clarence Ellis from Notre Dame and all those kind of things. My brother and my brother and Clarence were both drafted by the Falcons in the same draft. Clarence in the first round, my brother in the third round.
Okay.
And so Clarence from Notre Dame, me at Notre Dame at the same time.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, but Les's junior year at Yankton College was kind of a breakout year for him. He had 1,741 yards in that season. He was second in the nation in rushing.
Yeah, what a
And
year.
and so he was on the map. And so he was slated to be a first round choice. Um, he gets a knee injury his senior year.
Wow. What
And,
kind of
and
injury? ACL or?
I think it probably was strained ligaments at that time.
Gotcha.
I don't think it was cartilage. And so it affected his play pretty much that year. He was off and on, but he still got drafted in the third round by
Falcons?
Atlanta. Yeah, by the Falcons.
Yep.
Yeah, went to the Falcons and got cut, but then got picked up by Green Bay.
Yes, I saw that in his
Yeah,
bio.
and then he played for Green Bay, and that was his time. So he was just such a
That's
hard worker.
awesome.
I got to go see him play. Earl let me go out of practice to go watch him play against the Bears when Green Bay was at Soldier Field. So
Yeah, that's fantastic.
what a historic thing. But
What's his what would you say his legacy is to your family, and to the people who knew him growing up?
they're not surprised. They knew he would make it. I mean, he worked that hard. Like it's like the story said, what can he do?
Right.
And as a brother who also played sports and had some success at it, his work ethic was just unbelievable.
So he
You know,
really inspired you and your
yeah,
other brother.
yeah. My brother Alan and I both we were right there, and we worked. We could work hard. We had that Goodman name in front of us too,
Sure.
and let alone my mother and her sister who had been prominent in sports. But here's this Les Goodman, and coming up at that time, you're the younger brother. Somebody they expect that of you.
I was just going to say that. Was there a lot of pressure for you guys? Like, did you feel that pressure or did you feel like my brother's royalty, so we're kind of in the mix?
No, we didn't really feel it because we were working hard at ourselves. We
Uh-huh.
had some aspirations. I myself wanted to be a professional baseball player from the time I was 6. So I
Okay.
was a baseball nut, and then football actually came along, and I was able to parlay that into a full scholarship at Notre Dame, and
Oh,
and
wow.
then I was also drafted by the Red Sox out of high school. So I reached my goals too. So in
Yeah.
that respect, and then
We
my
got to get
brother
you
Alan and I.
we got to get you in the Hall of Fame too.
Uh, we'll get to that, but
Yeah, those Goodmans,
yeah,
I love it.
at that time, but we were making some names back there. We kind of put us, Port Jeff on the map for a
Yeah.
good little time. And Alan and I, our senior year, we went undefeated in football, and so we had in fact, there's some articles about the Goodman brothers benched
Oh,
because
yeah.
I only played the first half of 5 of the games because we scored so much. And
Yeah.
back in those days, you sat out, you let the second and third team play, and
Sure, sure.
today you score 4,000 yards and 200 touchdowns.
Yeah,
So
well, it's funny. My son's team, my son's Liam McIntyre, and his best friend is Dylan Laube. Dylan is a running back on the Raiders right now. They
okay.
they won a Long Island championship at West Hampton Beach High School, and it was the same thing. My son was the fullback, he was the tailback. They ran a wing T offense,
Hmm.
and by halftime, they were both on the bench.
Sure.
And it drove us nuts. It was good for all the other guys and me I was an educator for 33 years, so
Hmm.
it's really better for the kids. But
Yeah, yeah,
when people are talking about all-time records and all that, you're like, listen, Dylan could have scored 8 touchdowns in every game he played in. He
yeah,
just they at halftime it wasn't they would have wrote about him in Newsday how, Bill Parry never took him out.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of the right thing to do athletically.
Well, it really was, and even in college, it was still the same way.
Yeah.
I was at Notre Dame, and we'd be ahead a lot, and at times, you want to get back in there, but you're up by 30 points, and it's on to the next game.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
Notre Dame, I got to win a national championship, go undefeated my junior year. I
Oh,
mean, so
God
it
bless
was,
you.
yeah, we sports was good to us.
How did Les feel about that? Your
Oh,
career, you at Notre Dame.
Oh, he pushed me even harder. Yeah, I could have worked harder for him. I can remember spraining my ankle, and he's like, get up, get back in there," And it was because he
Sure.
came down one year for the spring game, and so he came down and watched and stuff. So, but he was very much inspiration to me through my whole career. My brother and Alan got to play at Yankton. Alan went to Yankton, so Alan as a
Oh, okay.
freshman and Les as a senior were on the same team.
Oh, really? Did
Yeah,
did they
yeah.
let freshmen play back then?
And NAIA, you could. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah,
At that
yeah.
time, you could. I couldn't. I was the last class of
Right.
no freshmen. We were the last freshman class at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which sort of, I
played.
mean, to me, let those guys develop, It probably gave you almost more comfort. Just you had a year under your belt. Now you're ready to go.
Well, one of the things that we realized, I go there and there's guys from Texas or even guys from New York, the Donardos, Jerry Donardo and Larry Donardo both went to Notre Dame, but they had went to prep school for 2 years before they came to Notre Dame.
Right, right. So
So
they're
I'm
20
I'm
years
going
old walking in the
I'm
door.
17,
Yeah.
and Jerry's 21. And we're both freshmen, So
Yeah.
but freshman sports they should. There's very few guys that are ready to play.
Correct.
The
No, I agree.
physicality that comes along, let alone the studies and walking and doing, campus
Correct.
is a big time, and that's another reason. So, but yeah, Les was really, I mean, there was just nothing he couldn't do. He worked hard at everything he did, whether it was his sports career, and then as he went on, he created a company called Creative Athletics. So he had a little sports company that he was working on,
What was creative athletics? What did they do?
selling sports equipment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the name was that. So he was in the shoe business, and he was a pioneer of and that was one of the things about him. He was always thinking about the next thing. He was always trying to stay
Sure.
ahead, stay ahead,
Did
stay
he
ahead.
continue drumming? Did he continue with music?
Yeah, that group was they played for a long time, and then as he left and went, those guys stayed on Long Island. In fact, I think Bill Potinski is still there, John Adams and John Gibbon, and they stayed right in Port Jeff, a lot of them. But
Okay.
he drummed for a while and was still just very spectacular. I mean, just unreal.
That's awesome. Well, what a
Yeah.
great story. Would you say his biggest inspiration? Was it your mom? Her athletic career? What
I think it
inspired?
was just his determination to be the best.
Just
He,
self-driven.
you go back, you take civil rights, you take all those things in the 60s, we're
Sure.
growing up, and as I found out, and I'm doing a project with Notre Dame right now called The Colorization of Notre Dame about the first Black athletes that started to come there. So Les is one of those guys. He's a pioneer, and there's just nothing he couldn't do, as a integrated society on Long Island, very
Right.
different than the South or any of those times
Sure.
at that time. And so we're competing with the best. We only have one classroom. You didn't have a separate classroom or anything. So the
Right.
standards were the standards. And he wanted to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
So he was driven by competition. He was just driven as a black man in America. He was driven.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
is awesome. And he was driven and he achieved, which
And
is,
he achieved. And like I say, I can smile when Linda said, they'd want to talk. I said, who better than me? I had a bird's eye view and was
sure.
dragged along with him, because as a running back too, and we could run and we were about the same speed, although he worked so much harder than I did. Had I worked as hard as he did, there's no telling,
Yeah, sure,
what
sure.
might have happened, but he had that drive. He really did it. And it was just really inspirational to be his brother. You
Oh,
know.
that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to share his story. And really, congratulations on the Hall of Fame. This is so, it's so enlightening for me. Every
Yeah.
time I meet somebody, they have a great story to tell. And I was explaining to one of my buddies, I said, we all know athletes, but you just know them for what they achieved, not for where they
Yeah.
came from, what their
Yeah.
story was,
Yeah.
what they overcame.
Yeah.
And those are the exciting things. And to me, to see you so inspired by your brother,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
to look at, and I don't want to say there's a woulda, shoulda, coulda, but you're like, if I worked the way he did, you
Yeah.
know, and
Well,
you went to Notre Dame anyway and won a national championship.
right. And I reached my goals, but I reached them partly because he was reaching his. And,
Yeah,
since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I wanted to get drafted out of high school and go. And so I made that a reality. But here came Notre Dame, here came Ohio
right.
State, here came all those schools. And, my mother was one that said, get your education.
Get your
It's something
education.
that it would, and at that time it was get your education is something they can't take from you. And that was a reality,
Yeah,
from the times that they was there. So it was just, being his brother and seeing him not take second to anybody in anything. Uh, it wasn't
outstanding.
hard. And so
Yeah.
it's with him in college, that was an inspiration. He came back and said, "Get your lesson, get your lesson." And so in order to go to Notre Dame, I had a grade point average, but I got it because of his instructions of when he came home and said, "Hey, y'all need to
Right.
get serious."
Yeah, so he brought it back to you of what it really takes to go to Notre Dame,
Yeah,
get
to
through those
even go to
doors.
college,
Right.
because as an athlete, you float through school,
Sure,
and
sure.
you try to get a C average a lot of time to be eligible, and yet, once you see that grade point and you see what the doors it opened up, I'm such a big advocate of education to this day.
Sure.
I love it. So
I
it was.
had some, I retired as the athletic director in the South Country School District, which is Belport High School.
Hmm.
And we had very good football, very good track, some really, really good athletes. And I can't tell you how many I would sit down with and say, look, I heard in middle school you were really talented, but you're not getting your work done in class. At the end of the day, you might be the most talented athlete we have in our school,
Yeah,
and nobody's going to care.
nobody's
Not
gonna
one
care.
college is going to care because there's
Yeah,
kids all over the country that are just as talented as you are, but they're getting their work done. Their
yeah,
academics are important.
yeah,
And, some listen, some don't. And the ones that didn't listen, they ended up having a real nice high school career, and that's it.
yeah.
Never moved on, never moved from Belport. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, you talk about Bellport. I always think of one guy that's older than both of us. His name was Randy Smith,
of course, of
Mr.
course.
Mr. Buffalo Braves and stuff. And
Yeah,
so I got to meet him because John Shoemate and Adrian Dantley both went to the Buffalo Braves before they moved to San Diego.
yeah.
But yeah, Les was that kind of guy. He wanted everybody to work harder, to raise themselves. That nothing was impossible.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it really is. Like I say, I smiled at the chance to talk about him because he's been gone a while. I miss him and Alan both.
Sure.
And so it's like the three of us, and I'm the one left. But I get
Right.
to I get I get to talk about both of them. So
Well, thank you, Ron, once again. Thank you for sharing your story. And again, congratulations. I'll see you in May, right? You're coming up.
yes, I'll be there.
All right, Ron.
All right.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you coming on.
All right. You take care.
Have a great afternoon.
You too.
You know that it's already